We've seen some pretty ambitious offensives by the Dominion that required extremely creative thinking and daring planning, while the Allies have mostly slowly pushed forward cautiously and methodically. But that changes this month, as the Allies launch their most audacious attack of the war. Greetings, lore members, this is the Dominion War. Now, last month, the Allies continued to push forward on the Calandra front and now threaten to cut off Beta Z from the rest of the Dominion line. While in the southern front, the Cardassians launched a massive counterattack against the Klingons at Tarsas, destroying their fleet, while the Jem'hadar redeploy north to protect against the growing Romulan threat, and they are vindicated as the Romulans now begin to probe Dominion defences. And now this month, there is big action on the Calandra front. The Allies have hitherto been continuing with the same pattern of double attacks, basically using two fleets against a single Dominion or Cardassian fleet, and this has consistently driven them back. And they do that once again this month, launching two double attacks using the Romulan, Klingon and Federation fleets. The Dominion at this point, particularly the Cardassian fleet on the main line, are pretty close to breaking. They've been hammered, absolutely hammered for the past 5 months. They have been consistently being hammered by this Federation, Klingon, Romulan phalanx. And while they are retreating into their own lines of supply, and thus able to recoup a lot of the losses very quickly, morale is at an all-time low, and the fact that they are being consistently beaten back, it's very difficult for them to get back on the front foot. They're consistently being forced back and unable to ever really stabilise or recover the situation. This month, the offensive takes the form of a Federation and Klingon fleet driving the Cardassians from Signet. This is to be expected, and this is what has been going on pretty much the last 5 months. The Cardassians were expecting the attack, but again, they're just undersupplied, and they are driven back from Signet. But the real piece de resistance of the Allied offensive is carried out by Tomalak and the Black Fleet. Rather than go straight at the Dominion line, which is now at Marcus, the Romulans instead opt to move to Catula, which is behind Dominion lines, but the northern half of the Calandra front, which is mostly where all the Klingons are stationed. The Klingons took a real battering very early in the Calandra offensive and still not quite recovered. So the Dominion aren't really expecting the Klingons to go on the attack. So they were very surprised when the Klingons stationed at Tarkan launched an attack on Catula. And very soon they realised the reason they were being so bold is because coming from the other flank was Tomalak's Black Fleet, and together the Romulan and the Klingon fleet were able to close in and crush the Jem'hadar fleet, destroying it utterly. That is quite a significant boon for the Allies, and it's meant that Beta Z and Marcus have been cut off from the rest of the Dominion line and are now surrounded. But that isn't all that the Allies are doing this month. Rather, the Romulan Seabirds stationed at Zartak are conducting another ambitious campaign. The fleet is proceeding under cloak through Dominion lines. Now, the Dominion have made sure to kind of protect against cloak infiltration maneuvers. Basically, the Romulans using their cloaks to penetrate behind their lines and then come back and attack the front line while it is engaged by the main front line. That can only go so far, and at least somewhere in depth there is an open system somewhere. There is a vulnerable target. The Romulans know that they can find it. So this fleet is travelling all the way to Foul Fortress. This is their main supply base for the entire Calandra front. All the ships that are travelling to the Calandra front, this is how they're getting there. It is absolutely vital to the Dominion's position here, and losing Foul would be an absolutely crippling blow. the Romulans are just moving under stealth. Now, moving there slowly under cloak. Now, they won't reach it this month, but no one knows that they're there. And if the Dominion don't find them before they make it there, then they're going to be in some real trouble. Elsewhere along the entire front, fighting continues on the Chintoka front, but is still basically bogged down in a series of ground battles, as well as continued attacks and harassment from the various Dominion fleets surrounding the system. On the central front, again, it's still at a standstill, but there is increasing agitation, particularly by the Romulans, to commence an attack, as is also the case on the Northern Federation front. Now, on the Romulan front, where you have these three fleets hidden in deep space, they launched a probing attack last month, that was the Firebirds, but they ultimately were repulsed. And the Romulans are very aware that they can't really launch any kind of deep strike operation without first getting the support of the Federation fleet in the nearby northern and central fronts. Unfortunately, those kind of offensives would demand a lot of resources, which are currently being lavished on the Calandra front, given the political significance of that front and the fight that is happening there, and the fact that they are going forward there, that is encouraging, and the Federation would far rather continue to push on this front where they are already going forward than in trying to change anything on any of the other fronts. So that explains the continued stagnation, of course, across the broader line. Even if they may well be able to drive the Dominion back, they just really want to focus on this one area where they are achieving big successes, and it's doing wonders for Federation morale. So that brings us to the end of the month. So Beta Z is cut off and surrounded, but the Jem'hadar and Cardassian fleets will not give up without a fight. Meanwhile, the Romulans are poised to take a major starbase right from under the Dominion's nose. It's really looking, isn't it, like the Dominion could use a friend. See you all next time.